You destroy science if you do not accept that. You can argue about what the cause was, but there has to be a cause. So what we're talking about here is, what was the cause? Last choice. And one evidence of design is intuitive design. Let me give you an example. Some years ago, I was involved in a program in Florida, and I was staying with a couple who lived in a house out in the boondocks. And as I pulled into their driveway, I noticed they had a pond. They had a pretty nice pond, except it was being pumped dry. I said, what are you doing? And the guy said, well, the pond needs to be dug a little deeper, and it's full of algae. We're going to clean all the water out, and we're going to rebuild it. And I looked down there, and there's a bunch of turtles. Must have been hundreds of turtles. And I said, what are you going to do with all these turtles? He said, well, I called the county ag agent, and he said, don't worry about it. They'll find their way out of there. So I'm thinking, okay, yeah, they'll burrow down in the mud. Didn't think too much about it. So after the lectures that night, around midnight, we pulled back into the guy's driveway. And in the driveway, there was a herd of turtles going across the driveway. Well, what do you call a whole bunch of turtles going one direction? I call it a herd. Herd of turtles going one direction. I had to get out of the car and move the turtles off a driveway so the guy could get into his garage. So we went down there the next morning and looked at the thing, and there was a interstate blasted through the yucca and the underbrush going in one direction. Well, we were kind of curious. There weren't any turtles left in the pond. But we followed that interstate, and about a mile down the road, we came to another pond. And the last of the turtles were just getting to the new pond. All of the turtles had gone in one direction, and they know which way to go. Okay, a little science lesson here. It's called polarized light. See, polarized light is light that is like throwing a rock at a pond. If you throw a flat rock at a pond, does it matter how you throw it? Well, yeah, I mean, surely none of you have been so delinquent that you haven't thrown a rock at a pond, right? Okay, if you throw it parallel to the water, the rock will skip. We've all skipped rocks, right? If you throw it vertical to the water, it will penetrate. But do you know that light is just like a flat rock? Light is created with a certain plane. It's two-dimensional. We call it electromagnetic radiation. It has an electric component and a magnetic component. If you throw light vertically into the pond, it will penetrate, and even at a slow angle. But if you throw it parallel to the surface, it will skip just like a rock. So reflected light is light that is flat. It's polarized. Hey, understand how your polarized sunglasses work? So you got a lens in those glasses that has a vertical plane. So reflected light, which is horizontal, can't penetrate into your eye. That's how your Polaroids work. You know the turtles wear Polaroids? Yeah. The turtle's cornea is just like what happens with the light. The light that skips is polarized. So as the turtle looks at the horizon, only the light that is parallel to the ground, the polarized light, gets into his retina. So as the turtle's sitting there in his dried up pond looking at the horizon, only the light that is being reflected, meaning there is water, is getting to his eyes. So he just heads for the light. Isn't that incredible? Incredible. And by the way, it explains a lot of things. You understand now why they won't let you turn on your porch lights if you live on the beach in Florida? Because the reflected light will cause the turtles that are out in the water to come into your porch. So they don't let you have lights on the beach. That's intuitive design. Now, I'm not going to suggest to you that God had to design the turtles, whatever you believe about that. That's just one example. One example. I've got over 200 examples in each of those 5 books, which means I have 1,000 examples like the one I've just shown you. But there's another kind of design. It's called architectural design. Another little lesson here. This is a mathematical one. There's a thing called Fibonacci's ratio. Fibonacci's ratio is a thing where if you look at certain numbers in a sequence, like up here at the top, you can see that they have a particular pattern. So as we're looking at the screen, you see a series of numbers, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. What this is one number added to the next number, which makes the next number. So 1 plus 2 is 3, 2 plus 3 is 5, 8 plus 13 is 21, 21 plus 34 is 55, and so forth. You say, okay, big deal. Well, if you take a class in architecture at the beginning level, you will see they use that to talk about the way in which you build fundamental structures. Because if you use Fibonacci's numbers, you get what is called a pleasing rectangle. That just simply means when people look at it, they say, oh, it looks pretty nice. If you make some other ratio, people don't like it. And here's an interesting fact about this. When you cut a square off of a Fibonacci rectangle, what you get is another Fibonacci rectangle. Cut a square off of that, you get another Fibonacci rectangle, and so forth. And if you connect the corners, you get what is called a Fibonacci spiral. You say, all right. Big deal. Well, it is a big deal in architecture. Because when you have a spiral staircase, if you want people to like it, you better make it a Fibonacci spiral. And what's interesting is that God must like it. Because he uses it over and over and over. The arms of a spiral galaxy are wound in a Fibonacci spiral. If you have the curl of a wave, it curls with the Fibonacci spiral. If you look at water going down the drain, counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere, clockwise in the southern. You know what the first thing had happened when I got to Ecuador was? Wanted to see if the water went down the spiral, counterclockwise. Filled up the kitchen sink, pulled the plug. Sure enough, the water went down the drain the wrong way. Well, there's a gravitational explanation for that. But the important thing is to understand this occurs when there's no gravity. Subatomic particles curl with a Fibonacci spiral. We see the Fibonacci spiral in living things. Snails curl their shells in a Fibonacci spiral. Even living snails like the nautilus. Snails of all kinds use the Fibonacci spiral. The teeth of a groundhog curls with the Fibonacci spiral, or a grizzly bear. Every beak of every bird there is curls with the Fibonacci spiral. The horns of animals living and extinct curl with the Fibonacci spiral. You see the Fibonacci spiral in the curl of a chameleon. You see the Fibonacci spiral in the petals of a magnolia. You see it in sunflower seeds. You see it in the curl of a pine cone. You see it in the tubers of potatoes and tomatoes and pumpkins. You see the Fibonacci spiral in a fingerprint. Now give me an evolutionary explanation here. How are you more fit? Because your fingernail curls with it, your fingerprint curls with a Fibonacci spiral than it would be if you didn't. What's natural selection going to work on? And it's not just seen in things like this. We could go on and on here. There are volumes of books written on Fibonacci spirals in insects, in spiders, in Chlorotella algae, in the cochlea of the inner ear, in the DNA helix, in the umbilical cord of a baby. The Fibonacci spiral is an architectural design that has no reason to exist. It doesn't offer strength. It doesn't offer survival. So why is it there? Let me give you an illustration. This is South Bend, Indiana, where I taught school for 41 years. This is the Hillman residence. Very famous architect designed that place. He's called Frank Lloyd Wright. Isn't that beautiful? You're looking at the north side of the building. The windows are very small. On the other side of the building, the windows are very large. And they're made of a special kind of glass. This building is so incredibly beautifully designed that even in our winters, and it gets 20 below where I live, the guy never has to turn on his furnace. Frank Lloyd Wright has all kinds of interesting structures. I was in Arizona, University of Arizona, was in a limo going to the airport. And we went by this place. I said to the little driver, "Oh, stop, I got to get a picture." So he stopped. I got out, shot the picture. I got back in and said, man, this looks like a Frank Lloyd Wright structure. Multiple roof lines. He said, "Well, how'd you know that?" I said, "I recognize the design." 2 weeks later, it was the University of California at Berkeley. And in the process of that, we went by this building. I'm in a cab this time. I said, "Oh, stop, I got to get a picture." Got out, shot the picture, got back in. I said, "Man, this thing looks like it was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. Look at that, multiple roof lines, big one." He said, "How'd you know that?" I said, "I recognize the design." And then I was at the University of Southern Florida. We're walking on the campus with the dean and students, and I'm going nuts. I said, "Hey, man, look at this. This university, it looks like it was designed by one of our famous northern architects, Frank Lloyd Wright." And he said, "Well, hey, didn't you see the sign?" I said, "What sign?" He pointed, "Here's a sign that said this entire university was designed by the famous architect, Frank Lloyd Wright." Oh, my. Helps to read the signs. Isn't that beautiful? Multiple roof lines, no windows on this side, lots of windows on the other side. And then, oh my. Have you been to Springhouse? If you're in Pennsylvania, around Pittsburgh, don't miss this one. Probably Frank Lloyd Wright's greatest design, Springhouse. Multiple roof lines, straddling a spring. Every room in this place is designed in such a way they don't need heat, they don't need air conditioning. The spring does it all. Incredible design. And there is no reason for it. If I can get this to move, there we go. Let me tell you something the evolutionists will never be able to answer for you. Why is there beauty in nature? Why is there beauty in nature? Frank Lloyd Wright's structures is not done because it makes them stronger or because of any kind of survival benefit. I mean, some of these buildings certainly are not survival of the fittest. But God has put his appreciation of beauty in everything from his music to his art to his architecture. So why do we see birds with incredible color? I noticed the screens on the side show it better than the one up top. Why? Folks, this doesn't give the bird a better chance of survival. It makes them sitting ducks. Well, they're not ducks, but anyway. Predators can see them so much easier. So why is there beauty? Architectural design. And look at that one, the golden pheasant. That is absolutely incredible. First time I saw one of those things, I just sat there and gawked at it. Incredible beauty. No reason for it. So, architectural design. And I've just shown you a very small cross-section of architectural design. But you've all seen the peacock. There's one more kind of design I want to share with you. And by the way, I want to say again, I've left a set of our books with Robert, and he will make them available to you. You can borrow them and read them and go through them. Some are in color, some are in black and white. All of these are examples of that. They look like this. But there's a new concept that's driving evolutionists crazy. It's called irreducible complexity. Originally, it was in a book by a guy by the name of Richard Behe, who is a PhD at Lehigh University, award-winning biologist. I'm going to do something simple. I'm not into going into the deep biological stuff. But basically what Behe said is, when you got a complicated system, there are a number of things that have to be right for the system to have to exist, to be able to exist. And the question is, what are the odds of that? I like to use the physics because that's my area, but I won't bother you with that. Over on the table, I have a little booklet which gives 47 evidences for design. If you want to see how many variables there are, that's just a quick look at some of them that I'm not taking time to go through. But here's what we get into with this discussion. First of all, a quick scientific look. There are many different kinds of galaxies in space. Does it make any difference what kind you're in? Answer is yeah. We're in a spiral type B galaxy. That means the stars in our galaxy are wound with a certain kind of tightness. That means there's a great deal of interstellar material in our galaxy. But there are galaxies called elliptical galaxies that have no interstellar material. They are much more common than spiral galaxies. How can you have a planet when there's nothing to make a planet out of? So the type of galaxy you have makes a difference. And I've listed just some of the ones that we know about. Here's an elliptical galaxy. Here's an irregular galaxy, which has explosions taking place that we still don't understand the nature of. The Webb telescope's working on that one as we speak. But something makes them explode. So out of every 100 galaxies that astronomers see, roughly 4 of them could possibly have a functional solar system. So what are the odds? Well, 4 out of 100, pretty good number. When you look out there, you see there's different colors. And it's important to understand, I'm just flipping through this, that one of the things that determines this is where you are in the galaxy. You can't be in the center of the galaxy. Too much activity going on there, black holes and all that stuff. The gravitational axis of the galaxy would rip a solar system apart. In order for a galaxy to have a solar system in it, there has to be an irregular, it's called an axial gravity boundary, where a stable solar system could exist. In every spiral galaxy, there are 2 zones where you could have a functional solar system. How could you calculate the odds of being in the right zone? Well, that's a very simple calculation. You simply divide the volume of the donuts by the volume of the whole galaxy. Now, by the way, you don't have to understand all of this. I'm just running this to let you see how many factors there are, okay? So you come up with a certain number. Our sun, it's not a typical star. When you look out into space, one of the things you'll see is that some of the stars that we see in space, like the Pleiades, are much hotter than our sun. What would happen if the sun was 10 times hotter than it is? You think it's hot out there now? Imagine what it would be. Some of the stars are full of dust and debris. What would that do? Some of the stars are red hot stars. Here's a distribution of the stars that you see in space. Notice that 95% of the stars that we see are the wrong kind of star to be able to support a functional solar system. And some of them are way too big. This is Betelgeuse in Orion. A Betelgeuse is so large that you could fit our whole solar system inside the one star. That's our solar system right there. You say, I don't see anything. That's the point. It's so small, we can't even put it on the screen. The size of the galaxy makes a huge difference. What are the odds of being in a place where the sun is the right age? If our sun became a red giant like Betelgeuse, it would look like the background. The Earth would look like the foreground. There would be no life here. We could talk about the odds of the stability of a star, the odds of having the nature of the star. This is a star that exploded called a nova. What are the odds of being in an area where there's no nova? And again, I'm skipping through this because of the time element. This is the thing you did probably in the 9th grade, and you have already forgotten it, right? It's called the Hertzsprung-Russell diagram, where you plot the stars in space, the temperature of the star, and the spectral class. Our sun is right in here. There are 20 million different possible computer plots on that plot, and only one that can support a functional solar system. What are the odds of having the right kind of star? Well, you could easily talk 1 in 20 million. And by the way, there's one kind of star that's just hard to visualize. And I'm not talking about the star that is back here, the blue giant. I'm talking about that star right there. That is a star that is so large and so massive and has so much gravity that nothing can escape it, even light. And as you know, it's called a black hole. This is an artist's drawing. I'll show you the actual picture in just a minute. What's happening here is this big blue giant is being sucked into this black hole. And it will eventually take that blue giant, which is 1,000 times the size of our sun, and it will crush it to the mass of the size of a thumbtack. If I were to shine my laser beam by here, it would get caught in this thing. It would go around and around and around, and then it would just disappear. What are the odds of being in a part of space where there's no black hole? And by the way, I'm skipping a few here. By the way, there is our first picture of a black hole. We now have over a dozen pictures. You say, well, where is it? It's right here, and it's eating this star. As you can see, it's digital. Material located out here makes an orbit at the same distance as we are from the sun. Every day it makes one orbit. And you know it takes us 365 days, right? Material in that one is going around in one day because the gravitational pull of the black hole is so strong. That's what the odds are. How far you are from the sun makes a difference. If you're too close, it's too hot. If you're too far away, it's too cold. If you're the wrong size, it makes a difference. And you have the wrong gases. I mean, this goes on and on and on. I don't have enough time to show you all of them. What are the odds of not being in a part of space where there's no intruders? This week's Science News makes a report of the chances of the Earth being hit by a comet or an asteroid. You know what the article says? Get a copy of this week's Science News. It will be 100 years before there is any possible intrusion or collision of an astronomical body of the Earth, because the Earth's position is defined that precisely by design. God designed the Earth in an incredible way. But you all know what happened, why that took place, right? What are you looking at here? a comet which struck the surface of Jupiter. 17 pieces of the comet hit the surface of Jupiter. And Jupiter had a collision which was so violent that the fireball produced by it was the size of the Earth. But that will never happen to the Earth, because we have, get this, 4 comet sweepers that are the right size and in the right place. So it is a mathematical impossibility for a comet of any size to strike the Earth. They are Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Those 4 planets are so strategically placed that you don't have to go to bed tonight worrying about getting hit by an asteroid. What may hit you is a human, not a piece of rock. What incredible design. So, let's do a little calculation here. I'm skipping a few because I'm running out of time. Even the moon. Maybe I ought to do this one real quick. How about the tilt of the Earth? What controls it? Answer, the moon. Neil Cummings, the head of the astronomy department at the University of Maine, has a book out which is called What If the Moon Didn't Exist? He points out if we didn't have a moon the size and the position of our moon, life on the Earth would become extinct in less than 5 years. Even having a moon is critical. But let's do a calculation. Now, I have chosen 10 variables here. I could list 47. The sheet is over there, if you doubt me. Odds of having the right galaxy. Remember what we said? We're talking probably 12 and 25 million, but I'm just using 1 in 25. I'm reducing the odds enormously. The odds of being in the right place, I said 12 out of 15,750,000. I'm reducing it to 1 in 100. The odds of having the right kind of star, said 1 in 20 million. I'm going to use 1 in 25. The odds of having the right distance from the star, the right mass, the right spin, the right tilt, not having a large moon, magnetic field, no black holes, and having comet sweepers. What are the odds? Okay, now, if you are a mathematician, you know how to calculate that. And probably I don't need to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway because somebody might not be aware of it. I got a deck of cards here. 52 cards in the deck, right? And in this deck, I have an ace of spades. I'll put it in the deck. I got a professional gambler sitting here in the front row. I'm going to ask him to take a card, any card. What are the odds of him drawing the ace of spades? 1 in 52. Lots of gamblers in the room. Okay, take a card. See what you can do with it. All right, he drew a card. Well, he's trying to draw 3, but we won't let him do that. And he saw the bottom card. Let's try it again. Here we go. Yeah, you cheated. Okay. I'm going to have to use a different card. Ace of diamonds. You keep seeing the bottom of the card because I'm looking down at it. All right, ace of diamonds this time. All right, ace of diamonds. Odds are 1 in 52, and he got the jack. All right. Now let's suppose I say, hey, this guy's so good looking. I'll tell you what, I'm going to hold out the deck of cards. He's going to draw the ace of diamonds twice in a row, back to back. What are the odds? Yeah, 1 in 52 squared. So he draws a card. It's not the ace of diamonds. He draws it again. The odds, again, it's not the card. So it's 1 out of 52 times 1 out of 52. That's 1 out of 5,204, right? Okay, now I say to him, okay, this time he's going to draw the ace of diamonds 4 times in a row out of a deck of cards. What are the odds? 1 out of 52 times 1 out of 52 times 1 out of 52 times 1 out of 52. That's one chance. Has a 7,211,316. The point is, not very likely. Okay, back up there. It doesn't do any good to be in the right kind of galaxy if you're in the wrong place in the galaxy. It doesn't do any good to be in the right galaxy, the right place in the galaxy if they're running around the wrong kind of star. It doesn't make any difference if you're right kind, right kind. If you're sitting right on top of that star, you're going to burn, baby, burn! And if you're too far away, you're going to freeze. So what do you have to do with those numbers? You have to multiply. That times 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 that. And if you do that, even with those reduced numbers, and with only 10 variables, and there's 47 on my sheet, what you get is one chance out of 17578125000000000. And the atheist says, if there's any chance at all, I'll take it. Okay. I won't argue that. But let me point something out to you. If you jump out of an airplane 10,000 feet above St. Louis with no parachute on, nothing but your birthday suit, what are the odds of your survival? Let's suppose I say to you, I will give you $1 million if you'll jump out of an airplane 10,000 feet in the air with nothing on but your birthday suit. Who will be willing to do it? You know, I've never had an atheist hold up their hand on that one. Nobody in possession of their mental faculties would gamble their life on odds of 1 in 10 million. But do you realize that this number is 176 million times worse than that? Now, nobody in this room would gamble their life on odds of 1 in 10 million. So why would you gamble your eternal soul on a probability that's 176 million times less likely than what you already said you wouldn't take on your life? By not having your hand up a moment ago, you are admitting you know that there is no rational reason to believe that the earth was a product of chance. And I want to say to you again, hey, look, I took minimum figures. I limited the number of variables. If you put all 47 in there, you know where you are? You're at 100 times worse than what is called the Drake limit. You know what that is? That's a probability that scientists admit can be relegated as being impossible. Impossible. You cannot believe we are the product of chance. And if you want to write down those numbers, there they are, but they are in our materials. And it's important to understand that what we are looking at here is a simple statement that God makes that, again, is supported by every shred of evidence we have. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. There was a beginning. The beginning was caused. It was caused by an intelligence. Now you can say, well, I don't believe it was the God of the Bible. Okay. Then tomorrow we'll talk about what is God and who created God. And why Jesus Christ. Why not Muhammad? Why not Buddha? Why not Baha'u'llah? What is the evidence? What is the evidence? You do not just blindly accept it because you were forcibly dragged to church 3 times a week. Look at the evidence. And by the way, we haven't even talked about the origin of life. Most of you had that one, right? In high school? Remember the Stanley Miller experiment? On the origin of life. Was that life? No, it was an amino acid. What were the odds? Now I want to say again, I'm not throwing you my opinion. I'm talking evidence you can research for yourself. You can read the scientific works. Look at this one. I made reference to Hoyle in our last session. No way a Darwinian struggle for survival. That's the evidence. Einstein. There was a beginning, it was caused by an intelligence, and we looked at Romans in our last session. But there are lots of other biblical passages. Look at Isaiah, who raises the question of creation. Look at the psalmist, who clearly shows an understanding of the nature of the cosmos in which we live. My sources are scientific sources. On the table over there, we still have some copies of our bibliography. You want a list of references? Please help yourself. We have our DVD series. I've left a set with Robert, but you can get it online. DoesGodExist.tv has all of our DVDs. You can watch them free of charge. And I said this before, but let me say it again. If you've got a skeptic who says they don't believe in God, ask them to watch the first DVD. Don't let them jump around. Let them watch the first DVD. It's free. If they raise a question, send it to me. I answer about 200 emails a day, and I'll be glad to respond to anything they want to raise about that material. By the way, parents, we also have a set of children's DVDs written and produced at a child's level, and I left a set of those with Robert for you to borrow. We also have a book in which we have put all this into a book form. I left a case of those with Robert. He can loan them to you free of charge. Or if he wants to sell them at whatever, the money's going to go to support what's happening here, so it's not going to come to me. And I mentioned the Dandy Designs, but we have other books. We have Q&A sessions. And at college and university campuses, those get a little heated. My all-time record for a Q&A was one that went for 9.5 hours. I don't do that anymore. I'm getting too old and decrepit, but back in those days, that was the norm. Good questions. My own teaching experience. And again, our quarterly is available free of charge. If you would like to read the articles that we have, my wife Cynthia has an article in each issue. The scientist issue, there's the latest copy over there. It has the Webb telescope material in it. If you'd like to be on our mailing list, there are some blue sign-up sheets on the table. Just put your name and address on there. We will add you to the quarterly publication list. It comes out 4 times a year, and it's free of charge. So take a look. If you would like to be on our mailing list, please let us know. One more thing. I wanted to allow enough time to be able to explain this to you. We have an extensive jail ministry. You know why people are in jail? Well, for a lot of them, it's either they never were taught God's word or they have left it. They either were never taught or they have left it. Right now we have 5,443, I think it was the last time I looked, students who are taking our basic course. And we have from that course reference material to a number of programs that our brotherhood offers on, one of them is called Prisoner of Hope, talking about life and how people in prison can work their way out of it. Another one talked about Freedom Steps, which leads to CASA, that's Christians Against Substance Abuse, which is a program to help guys and gals that are in prison because of drug abuse. So we have students who are taking that material. We also have a college level course. The first level of the college course is available over there on the table. And I'll be talking about the problem of human suffering in our lesson tomorrow when we talk about why pain and suffering. And I have to tell you from the start, that lesson comes more from the School of Hard Knocks than anything else. I'm a parent of a child born, this is my son Timothy, born blind, mentally challenged, with cerebral palsy, schizophrenia, and he's blind. And we lost him to COVID. So I've had to deal with some things. And it's from the School of Hard Knocks that I talk about this question of pain and suffering, not some big, heavy philosophical discussion. And we'll talk about that tomorrow. But we have other people that work with us. Judy Hart Ragsdale has had cancer 3 times. She has brought over 100 people to Christ through cancer, using her own personal experience as a guide for that process. And we've mentioned the children's programs that we have. We also have an archaeology series. We have a new archaeology series by John Cooper that deals with archaeological proof of the validity of the Bible. We already have 9 lessons in it. We will have, hopefully, 13 lessons by the end of the year. So all of this material is offered to you free of charge. We want to be there to support you. I can't go out and do as many programs as I used to, but isn't it wonderful we have technology that lets us reach out? I used to consider it a pretty good lectureship when we had 100 people to talk to in a program on a college campus. Last year, we studied with over 2 million people through the media, through the courses that we offer online and through the mail. So you never get too old. I'm the oldest person in here, I think. Anybody over 85? So I've got the record, right? I'm the oldest ogle fogey here. Oh, you never get too old to continue to be able to reach out. So use what you have. Let's close with a prayer. Father, I thank you so much for our time together. I pray for those listening, Father, that they will understand, they will think on the tools God has given them, that they'll be able to take the material that you have given us in your word and in your nature, the truth of your existence and the reality of your nature can be seen by every one of us as we reach out to a lost and a dying world. Bless us in our understandings. Help us be effective in using the tools you have given us. In Christ's name, amen.